Okay, I'm gonna try to do a video of this and show you what I'm doing. But this is of a Unertl scope. This is one of the USMC contract ones. They're all pretty much the same from everything that I've seen. What I'm gonna do first, this one doesn't have a spring, but your spring will normally be right in here. And then also one thing on the USMC contract scopes, they have these little tiny recessed screws where a lot of the commercial line have a larger screw, and these screws got to come out too, where on the USMC ones you don't have to. The commercial ones you usually do. But it's actually pretty straightforward. I've never had any luck taking that objective bell off. I've tried before. Every single one I've ever tried I could never get off. So I always just start from this side and then work my way back. But first, this right here, the eyepiece, that just unscrews and comes off. This is just like a little retaining ring or something like that. That just unscrews and comes off. This is not threaded on. It's actually attached by these two little small screws on the side. In fact, if your crosshairs aren't straight, if you loosen these screws just like a quarter turn or so, then you can actually sit there and twist this, and that's what actually makes your crosshairs straight on your rifle. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen those two screws. They're right here. I'm going to pause the video for a second and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, I pulled those two little screws out, which what I was talking about earlier. You can sit there and just twist this, and this actually adjusts your crosshair so it'd be level on a rifle. But that's not threaded on. That's actually just like a slip ring that goes on, and actually it's threaded to the inside where the crosshairs are attached. But what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to unscrew the eyepiece right here, which there's nothing really fancy to that. It just unscrews and comes off, but just hold on one second. So that's with the eyepiece off. In fact, if you look, I don't know if it'll let me show you. I don't know if you can see it in there. That is where your crosshairs are. That's actually a tube that comes out. So you can actually easily change crosshairs. But I don't know if I can do this without holding the camera. Basically, this ring right here just unscrews, it comes off. And then this one is actually, once it's unscrewed from that thing, it just sits there and slides. In fact, if you look in there, you can actually see how there's that part is threaded. That's a tube that goes inside the scope. That's where your crosshairs are attached. But what I'm going to do next, I'm going to unscrew this, pull this off. Like I said, this ring is not attached at all. So that ring's going to come off, and then I'm going to show you what the tube looks like once you pull it out of the crosshairs. So I got that slip ring off. You can see how it's threaded. And then this one, like I said, it's not attached. It just sits on there and then screws in. That one just comes off. Now, if you look in there, I don't know how this is going to show up. There's an inside tube that the crosshairs are attached. That whole tube will slide out now. And so I'm going to pause it for a second. I'm going to pull this tube out of the inside. You have to be careful so you don't damage your crosshairs, but that whole tube will now slide out. And that's literally all it is this is the crosshairs. It comes out and it's a tube. And you can see the holes that are threaded right there. And you can see where it has an opening for the screws to go through. But if you look on the top there, that's your crosshairs. And that's how easy they are to change. You just need one of those micro screwdrivers and that real thin, I use a titanium wire that I bought on eBay. But you literally just sit there and loosen the screws, run it across and tighten it down, and that's how you replace crosshairs. It takes me 10 minutes to do crosshairs. But to show how this is just inside the scope, I'm going to put it together just sort of loosely just to show you what it's looking like on the inside. Hold on one second. And that's just how it's in the scope like that. See how there's that wide rectangular opening? that just allows for your screw to go in there, and then that's also what allows you to move the crosshairs in the scope to level it on the rifle. So I mean, it's super easy. And then once you get these crosshairs out, there's literally nothing else in the scope except for down the line where the next lens is. So I mean, at this point, you can't hurt anything. So what these do now is you just slide these off. And then that literally comes off. It's just got a spring and a plunger that holds it taut against it. And then from here, the next thing you're going to have to do is just loosen these, which, I mean, these are a no-brainer. They just sit there and come off. Now, like I said, again, on the commercial scopes, you will have larger screws right here. And what I do is I just loosen them and then take them out slowly. And then I do my best not to move the scope at all once I do that, because that's an internal lens. But I've never had any issue. I take the screws out, and then that's how you get to that spring. You just loosen the spring on the top. It just slides all the way back, and now it comes all the way off the tube. So, I mean, it's super easy to do. It takes me 10 minutes, and that's because I'm slow. Now, this crosshair piece does not have to come out. You can leave it in there and it doesn't hurt anything at all. This is, I was showing you how simple it is to take out and to replace the crosshairs if you have to do it. But installation is just in the reverse. You would sit there, once you get your spring off, you'd sit there and put your stop back on and put your screws back in right here. This plunger, sorry guys, it's sort of hard to hold the camera with one hand and do this at the same time. But when I do these, I just sit there and just push that plunger in and then slide it on. And then I'm going to pause it for a second once I get this thing slid back on. Okay, I just slid my micrometer back on. Only thing you got to do is see how it's threaded like that. Just make sure it lines up where that rectangular is on the inside. I'm going to pause it for a second as I do that, because I don't want to sit there and break my crosshairs pushing it in. Usually what I do is I get it started, and then I'll take, like, you know, either just a screwdriver bit or some kind of like pick or something, and I just push it in and line it up. It's easy. Hold on one second. And I just push it in to where you can sit there and see the threads, and now it's lined up. And what you would do is sit there and slide on your slip ring, which you always make sure the magnification goes on the top. That's how it is. Then once it's lined up like that, you just sit there and just hand thread your tiny little screws, screw on your ring or whatever they call this. And then you just screw on your eyepiece, and then that's basically it. It's super easy. If you got any questions, just ask. Good luck.